In common with all right-thinking people, I love cemeteries, and Sunderland has some belters. I have a particular fondness for Mere Knoll Cemetery and also Houghton Hillside. That's a cracker. I suggest you go there as well. This, I'm not saying it's the best, but it's certainly Sunderland's biggest. 80 acres. Bishopwearmouth Cemetery, been here since 1856. Strongly recommend you have a look round. It's quite a stellar collection of people in here. The founder of Sunderland Football Club, a lion tamer, war heroes, multi-millionaires, politicians, you name it, they're all in here. Some people don't like cemeteries. I don't know why. The inmates could not possibly do you any harm. One of the big names in Sunderland's industrial heritage is that of Vaux, and a number of the family members of the Vaux family are found in Bishopwearmouth Cemetery. Cuthbert Vaux founded his famed and much missed brewery in 1806. Among his descendants also to rest here are his son, also called Cuthbert, 1813 to 78, who lies alongside his two wives. One died before the other, I should add. Cuthbert's son, Ralph Thomas Vaux, 1836 to 1828, is in a separate grave along with his son, Dr. Ralph Vaux, to keep things complicated, 1874 to 1917. And as you can see by reading the headstone, the second Cuthbert Vaux was visited by a great deal of tragedy in his life. Martini McCormaugh, the lion tamer, we know little about his origins. We do know he was probably the first black lion tamer. He was purportedly from some exotic part of Western Africa, but he may also have been from the West Indies, and another school of thought says he was actually called Arthur Williams and was from Liverpool. So this rather exotic West Indian, West African scouser lies here. The age on his grave is little more than a guess. He famously tangled with Wallace the lion, who now stands next to that Nissan Bluebird in the Sunderland Museum, and he survived that. He actually died in Sunderland, nothing to do with lions, in the Palatine Hotel, which is now the apartments, Mowbray Apartments. The abiding mystery of McCormaugh is the fact that he lies here in the Commonwealth War Grave, in perfect symmetry with all of the others. He died in 1871. The soldier next to him died in 1940, a World War II victim. So why McCormaugh is here with all of the servicemen, we have absolutely no idea. We would like some assistance on that if you have it. McCormaugh died of an illness, and the headstone says 32, but we don't really know. Mr. Manders must have been an absolutely charming gentleman. McCormaugh was replaced within days by an Irishman who also had already been mauled by lions and actually donated his left hand to one of them. And he was killed by lions little more than a year later. The bottom half of the headstone is frankly a disgrace. It is little more than an advert for Mr. Manders' circus. Sunderland's glorious shipbuilding heritage is represented very much in Bishopwearmouth Cemetery, and here's a name most of you will be familiar with, Doxford. A number of Doxfords rest here, including Sir Theodore Doxford, 1841 to 1916. Apart from being a shipping magnate, he was also a politician. The Doxfords were, by today's standards, billionaires. Anyway, Theodore Doxford, he's not actually in this grave, he's over there somewhere. This is another branch of the family. 1895 general election, he became Conservative MP for Sunderland after defeating the Liberal and Sunderland Echo founder Samuel Storey. He stood down in 1906, and in 1898 he was one of the attendants at Gladstone's funeral. Away from the main Commonwealth Graves section of the cemetery, there's a clump of 5 Commonwealth graves here. Next door we have there's one gentleman who was in the Durham Light Infantry, which seems reasonable. This one was a bit of a mystery to us at first. S.P. McAllister, Canadian Army Medical Corps, died the 15th of August 1916. And we have to wonder why this person would be in a cemetery in the middle of Sunderland. We had no idea. However, some readers filled in the blanks for us. The soldier's full name was Stephen Patrick McAllister, born in Sunderland August 2nd, 1887. So he died 3 days after his 29th birthday. His Irish parentage, and his father Jack was a regular in the army and stationed in Sunderland Barracks. They moved around a lot. In 1901 the family lived in St Vincent Street, which is in Hendon, and John was working on the new pier, which must have been the Roker Pier. The 1911 census showed Stephen living with his sister Annie Hunter and her husband in Bolden, all 3 listed as tobacconists. Like many young men at the time, Stephen probably emigrated to Canada to seek his fortune. Canada was automatically brought into the war after Britain's declaration in 1914, as it was a British dominion. Stephen enlisted into the Canadian Army Medical Corps soon afterwards. He was eventually hospitalised near the Somme battlefield and died later of a heart attack. He was transferred to Middlesex, diagnosed with shell shock and acute heart disease, and is thought to have died in Sunderland, as his next known address was Station Terrace in East Bolton. Even by the standards of World War I, this is a particularly sad story. After a vote in the year 2000, Sunderland Football Club decided that its official nickname would be the Black Cats. The name's never really caught on, to be honest. They could quite conceivably have called themselves the Teachers, because of largely of this man, James Allen. His name looms large over that of the city itself, really. He founded Sunderland Football Club in 1879 in Norfolk Street with a lot of other teachers. He played himself. He once scored 12 goals in a 23-0 win for Sunderland over the mighty Castletown. He was Scottish by birth. He was born in 1857 in Tarbolton. It's a small village just south of Kilmarnock. He came to Sunderland to teach. He taught at Hilton Road School, among other places. Sunderland AFC in the late 19th century were the powerhouse of English football, if you can imagine such a thing. So he must have been chuffed, but he wasn't. By that stage, he'd fallen out with the club to the point where he went and formed another club, Sunderland Albion. It was short-lived, and the rivalry was intense, albeit Albion only lasted 4 years. And the games that they had were quite violent. Sunderland AFC did the dirty on Albion. They drew each other in the FA Cup, a point at which Sunderland AFC simply withdrew. This was a financial disaster for Albion, who never really recovered. James Allen died in, I think it's Elmwood Street, certainly in Ashbrook anyway, in 1911. This is the family grave. He's buried next to his wife Priscilla. The main name on the grave is Stevenson, which was another branch of the family, but there lies James Allen, founder of Sunderland AFC. One of the money-spinning wheezes that James Allen and his friends thought of in the early days of the football club was to hold a raffle in which the top prize was a canary which had been owned by one of the members of the committee. History does not record the name of the committee member or indeed the canary. This is the family plot of the Mailing family, its most famous member being George Mailing VC, a Sunderland man born Bishopwearmouth. He won the Victoria Cross as a medical officer in the First World War, 1915. In France, he worked for 24 hours under constant shell fire, didn't bat an eyelid, working on his own with people being killed all around him, and for that he rightly was honoured. He's actually not buried, he's buried in Kent, but this is the family plot. Very close to each other are two big names from Sunderland's past. This is the grave of Sir Luke Thompson. We'll come back to him in a minute. He was the town's, as it was, MP. And right next to him, about 3 metres away, headstone for the Binns family. Most Wearsiders are very familiar with the name Binns. Here lies Edward Binns, a member of the illustrious Binns family. It's probably one of the lesser known ones. However, Joseph John Binns, 1839 to 1922, he inherited the department store dynasty after the retirement of his father Henry Binns. Joseph is buried with his wife Rose. Their son Christopher Binns fell during the Battle of Ypres in 1917, and he's buried in Flanders. His elder brother of Joseph, Sir Henry Binns, born Sunderland 1837, this may surprise you, became Prime Minister of the colony of Natal in what is now South Africa. Lost a hugely important court case over Indian labourers to a lawyer who later became known as Mahatma Gandhi. Another Conservative MP's grave is that of Sir Luke Thompson, right behind me. 1867 to 1941. He made his money in coal, obviously owning coal rather than digging it, and his headstone says he was the member for Sunderland 1922 to 1935, which isn't quite true. Between 1929 and 1931 he was replaced by Marion Phillips, an extremely dour woman but a fearsome and historically important figure in the Labour Party. However, only a grubby cynic would suggest that it's quite fitting that a politician should have a headstone that doesn't quite tell the truth.